We're a minute early.
Really?
Shall we get started? We should get started. I promised the person managing the camera that I would not walk over here. I said, under no circumstances will I walk off the stage. But I'm a walker, and I walk when I talk. So if I do that, apologize to the backstage. I'll try to stay here. Thank you very much. Welcome to the session. What I love to do before we start these is kind of jump into the audience, and I did a little bit of that with a few of you, just to kind of get a feel for your interests and kind of what you guys are looking for in the session. Today's session, we've got, 30 minutes, I think? I made a mistake in previous years of trying to go deep with a lot of content, and we miss all the key points. And so for this session, I try to go a little lighter in the slides, and I want to go heavier on the context, heavier on the conversation, right? So just before we get started, let us introduce ourselves. My name is Adrian Estala. I'm the field CDO here at Starburst Data. I spent the first part of my career kind of in strategic consulting, IT consulting, business consulting, 30 years overall. I spent the second year of my career, the last 15 years or so, kind of working at a Fortune 100, kind of ended that session of my life as a CDO. And I joined Starburst here, startup 4 years ago. And so I spent most of my career on the outside of the vendor side, if you will, kind of on the commercial side or on the business side. And the last 4 years really here on the startup side. And so when I talk about what we're doing with data strategy, and I talk about what we're doing with data architecture, I'm talking about it really from a practitioner's lens, less of a sales lens. I'm not a sales guy. And so the goal today is to share information. Akshat, why don't you talk a bit about yourself?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Akshat Nair. I'm the field CTO for Starburst. I've been with Starburst for almost a year now. I joined Starburst as an ex-customer of Starburst from a company called DoorDash. Some of you might be familiar in Europe with a company called Volt. That's a division of DoorDash in Europe. There, I was managing the core data platform, and I dabbled with a lot of data technologies like Starburst, Snowflake, Databricks, and many more. And when I was looking for a new role, I was really excited to get this opportunity because I could see the potential that Starburst had. And here, I'm helping the customers of Starburst with the experience that I gathered by running a petabyte level data platform back at DoorDash and trying to bring that experience to the customers of Starburst.
Fantastic, fantastic. Before I jump into the slides, let me just do a little bit of contextual level setting. I know quite a few of you, as I got into the audience, were very interested on the data product side. I also mentioned to you, a lot of the conversation here is really focused on how we bring data products to the business. Some nodding heads. So I know that it's hard for you guys to ask questions because we all have headsets on, but just with a show of hands, how many of us in the audience are building data products today? Right, quite a few of us, fantastic. How many of us are using those data products to drive an agentic strategy or building agents on top of those data products? A couple of you, fantastic. If I say the word semantic layer or a business semantic layer, some nodding heads, is that something that we're also looking at? Awesome. Those are the key elements of the conversation today. I've spent the last kind of 4 years in Starburst. Really, when Data Mesh started 4 years ago, at least when the first book was published by Zhamak, we published that book with Zhamak. And so you can probably YouTube this. I used to have a Data Mesh TV podcast. And in the early days, we were talking about the concept of data products and the concept of data mesh. Fast forward to today, we're actually truly practicing, executing, delivering, and winning with data products. But when I talk about data products today, somebody said earlier, what's the definition? Let me give you a little bit of kind of my definition for data products, right? First and foremost, the technical definition for me, and by the way, there's a lot of different ways to build data products. One of the key pieces of the presentation today is really based on our data products, which we're a federation engine, first and foremost, right? So when we build a data product, it's a code-based, think about it as logic, it's a code-based data product that federates across a lot of different sources. We shine in a hybrid environment, cloud, on-premise, different types of sources. That's how I build my data products. I query data at the source, federation, point number one. Point number two, more and more now, when we talk about data products, I immediately jump to semantic layer. But the semantic layer that I'm building, I'm not building it with IT, bear with me, I'm building it for business teams. What I do now, most of what I do is I build big, bad business semantic layers for banks, right? And so I sit down with banking teams and we build a semantic layer that they understand with business teams. How do you see the data? How do you want your data organized? I don't care about what the data looks like on the back end. I'm focused on how they want to see data on the front end. And I can create that logically very simply because I don't have to worry about migrating data. So that business semantic layer is kind of the second key principle of the story we're going to talk about. The third key principle, and I already kind of said it, is we do all of this with the business teams. So we don't build this in an isolation, kind of ivory tower on the IT side. I build it in the room with the business. We work with them to build the data product. We work with them to define the semantic layer. When we build data products with the business and they give us their business metadata, now I can power agents. Because the business metadata in my data product matches the business language in their questions or the business language on the agent side. And when you have that match, you have much better accuracy. And that's kind of the secret to how all of this works. Strong data products, business metadata, and a semantic layer, which drives an agentic strategy. Let me show you how. What did I miss there, Akshat, in the introduction?
So I think one thing I would like to ask you here is, in this description, you were emphasizing a lot on the business semantic layer.
Yeah.
So compared to any other semantic layer, why so much emphasis on business side?
Great question. When I was a CDO at a company before, I used to hire IBM to come do my data governance. And they came in one year and they took them 2 years to build this great enterprise architecture model. It looked fantastic. When I took it to the business teams, they didn't understand it. It was complicated, right? My biggest complaint when I dealt with EVPs as a CDO was they didn't understand the data. They couldn't find their data. They couldn't access their data. This era that we're in right now, this AI era, it's about experimentation, not IT experimentation. It's about AI business experimentation. We have to enable our business teams to experiment on their own. You can't enable business experimentation if they can't see and understand their data. So if I build them a business semantic layer that they live in, that they understand, that they can touch and they can browse, then I'm driving experimentation. And so I think what's different about AI transformation, for those of us that have been doing this, so some other gray hairs in the audience for 30 years, every IT transformation we've done over the last 30 years has largely been IT-led. This is the one that's truly business-led. We need the business teams to wave the flag when they get across the finish line. They should be the ones driving AI innovation. This is the ambition, right? I like to start with kind of where we're going to end the session. We're going to end the session with a slide that looks, actually it's the same slide, right? When we end the session today, what we're trying to build, and there's a lot of different ways to kind of build your AI data stack. I want to highlight a couple of key elements. The first thing I want to highlight is the data product box in the middle there, right? When I have a lot of complexity on the back end, if I can abstract that complexity and make it really simple with logical data products. I recently replaced a Teradata environment that has 1600 tables and views, mostly duplicate. I replaced it with 56 reusable data products that the business teams could use. So the business teams, they could never understand the Teradata or the pipelines to Teradata, but once we started to make it simple for them, they were off to the races, right? Now, you could do the same thing for any traditional legacy warehouse. You can keep it if you want, but we're trying to abstract the complexity with a logical semantic layer. When you do that, you're able to power agents in the front. This piece here in the middle, for those of us that build agents, everyone from a longer term agentic strategy, you're gonna need some type of orchestration tool. We typically use LangGraph. A lot of our customers use LangGraph. And so the bigger story here, the ambition, if you will, is diverse agents across all your business teams. These are not agents your IT teams are building. These are agents your business teams are building. We have a customer right now, a big global media company, right? They have 1,400 advertising agencies. Every one of these agencies has agents that they're building in Google and I think they're using Amazon, right? So they've built 1,000 agents on the front end. And the way that they're going to access their data is through data products on the back end in Starburst, right? It's an easy way to make the right data available to an agentic framework. You don't start here, right? Let's figure out where we start. If your vision is to get to a point where you've got this broader agentic workflow with hundreds or 1,000 agents, you got to start with a very simple semantic layer. It's not one semantic layer for the whole company. Think about this as a domain. It's a semantic layer for specific domain teams. I might build, this is a healthcare example, but I might build a semantic layer in a bank for the wealth management team. And then I'll go down the hall and I'll build a semantic layer for the consumer team. Then I'll go down the hall and I'll build a different semantic layer for the finance team. Every one of those teams should have a semantic layer that they understand. When ECIA, I should tell you guys, I've never been a data modeler. Like I think I've done everything in IT except for data modeling. So I'm not the guy to explain to you how to do data modeling. I am the guy to explain to you how to make it easy for the business. And so I created this framework, ECIA. It's nothing too special, but it makes it really easy for my business teams. When I'm talking to them about data, I say, look, you've got big questions. That's entity. These are your big themes, your big questions. You've got detail that you attach to those big questions. That's context. Those are core data products. I build those data products from source data. I go to the sources, wherever they are, table, row, column. I pull data in, and I create logical core data products. And more than likely, I probably materialize those in a lake somewhere so I can get to them very quickly. If the data doesn't change, but every 30 days, I'll reuse the same data products for 30 days. If it changes all the time, then I'll change them and update them all the time, if you will, right? So I update them as often as they need to be. And then I build insight and agent data products. These are derivatives. My insight data products are a combination of E and C, and my agent is also a combination of E and C. These derivative data products are built to answer the most common questions. You can think about, oftentimes when I work with BI teams, everybody says, oh, my stuff is different. My data model is specific. My data needs are unique. The reality is, as you start to build more and more of this, you start to kind of meet with all these BI and application teams, they're all asking for the exact same thing. If I can build a data product and then limit access, so when you open it, you can only see some columns. You open it, you can only see some rows. You open it, you can't see anything. If I can manage access to that same data product, I can promote reusability. And all of a sudden, from a governance perspective, I've made my life a heck of a lot easier because I can certify these data products. I know they're right. I've got really strong domain ownership and I've got the right level of security. And I can do the same thing for the agent data products.
So in this session, or in this context, the trust is essentially coming from the fact that this is governed.
Yeah.
There is certification attached.
That's right.
There is data quality. There is documentation. And this is coming from the business perspective.
It's coming from the business perspective because they helped me build it. They were in the room when we put it together.
So when you do that with the business team and you try to use this paradigm or framework, how long does it typically take for you to get to entity or context kind of things? And how long does it takes it to get to an insight? Like what are the typical durations that you see?
Yeah, great question. I like to do these, it's agile pathfinders. So typically I'll do a 90-day pathfinder with a business team if we're getting started. Getting started is the hardest part because there's a lot to this beyond just designing the semantic layer. You've also got to think about governance. You have to think about access management. You have to think about DevOps and so forth. But in a typical exercise, I might do a 90-day pathfinder with a business team. And we'll start by designing the semantic layer. And then we'll build 5 or 10 data products, get them actually using them. And once they get really comfortable, then they can start to kind of design the broader exercise. I don't like to build more than 100. There's no hard rule. But typically I tell my business teams less than 100. But we have 1,000 tables. Keep it simple. When you promote reusability, you don't need a lot of volume. I can get the same data product to solve a lot of different answers. Yeah, awesome. Once you build that semantic layer, kind of in the first stage, is if you go to the next slide, then what we were solving here for initially with that semantic layer, and so we started 2-3 years ago, was we were building data products and semantic layers, and I was just solving BI and application needs, right? This is great. If I'm a compliance reporting team and I'm using the same data products, I have consistency, right? If I am a innovation team, right? I have a published use case at Citibank where their anti-money laundering team has a data product. They change it every morning. right? They don't need a data modeling team or an engineering team. They own their own data products. They have the agility they need to make changes. And so you're able to have the flexibility for some teams to reuse, and you also have the flexibility for other teams to be very agile and customized. You balance the two. What you're shooting for, 80% reuse, 20% customization. 80% of your team should be reusing the data products for their solutions. And some of those teams that are driving real innovation, real agility, real speed, you might want to give them the ability to customize their own data products.
So what I would like to add here is that, can you do this with other systems? Yes, you can build a semantic layer with other systems. What's so special here is that you can do this without any data movement. You can do this across multiple systems. Your end users or business users or BI users don't really have to worry about whether the table is coming from Postgres or the table is coming from your data lake. All they see is a data product which is defined in business language, so they can associate it with it more, they can understand it better, and they can use it in multiple situations.
Fantastic, yeah. If you've got this trust, this 2.5 years ago, we had a customer, Halliburton. They said, hey, we're going to try putting one of these data products behind an LLM. We said, all right, let's try it out. Think about this data product. I've got a tight schema, clean schema. I've got business metadata, right? So I feel like this is loosening up a little bit. I've got business metadata. What I mean by that is the metadata at the column level and at the table level is written in business language. Now I can expose that to an agent. So what's happening here, right? Typically, let's think about a simple agent, a conversational agent, text to SQL, right? Somebody asks a question, and that question then goes against a data set. If you're using RAG, then the RAG system is vectorizing your question and comparing your vectorized question against a lot of different vector data on the back end, trying to find the right matches. And if it can't find the match, it's guessing and you have hallucinations. You often have mismatches because somebody's asking a business question in the front and your RAG's trying to match technical metadata on the back. It doesn't work. If I have a data product that I built with the business and I have business metadata and I can present that schema and that metadata to the LLM and say, here's a question, here's the schema, and here's the metadata. Write me a text to SQL. Text to SQL is accurate. So instead of having to put 1 billion rows of data into an LLM, which nobody would ever do, I don't think we have the tokens for that, I get back from Starburst and that data product, I get back a smaller data set that then you can make available to the LLM and say, hey, here's the question, here's my prompt, here's the data. And you're able to get an answer back. Very simple conversational agent. I can build that agent with a business team in 4 hours. Simple. Build a data product, build an agent, they're off to the races. And what's fascinating about that is because the business teams build the data product with you because they built it, they understand how it works. And when they start to get issues with the accuracy of the questions, like, wait a minute, I know why it's wrong. We don't have that metadata in the column. They can start to fix it. And so what you're really driving here is adoption. We talked about trust in the last one. What you're driving here is you're enabling your business teams. Remember, this presentation is about empowering the business. So what you're doing here is you're getting business teams really comfortable with using agents because they know the data you're exposing because they put the data in the box.
So one question I have for you here is, as a tech person who was doing the infrastructure work and not the business work, why do you say that business-led AI innovation is more important or is going to be more successful compared to, say, IT-led innovation here?
Yeah, it's what's really interesting about a lot of the projects we're doing now, especially on the banking side, is we're in this space because we love it, right? I'm so excited that after a 30-year career in IT, AI's come up. It's kind of, hopefully will extend my IT career a bit longer. We love this. We've been doing this a long time. I guarantee you there's nothing that we can imagine from an innovation side that's going to be better than what our business teams can imagine. When I sit down with business teams and we get them comfortable and they start to really think and they come back the next morning and say, hold on a second, can you do this? Hold on a second, can you look at this data? Wait a minute, what if we did this? They start to imagine with real business sense and real business urgency, the opportunity that we on the IT side, unless we're really embedded into the businesses, we don't get it. And so when you enable the business teams, you give them the capabilities and you allow them to, if I can be a little dramatic, dream, I think that's where the magic happens, right? You get them excited, you get them to trust it, and you get them to feel confident that they can kind of run it on their own.
So I think it's also boils down to the fact that your business doesn't really care about what infrastructure is running underneath. All they see is the metadata, the data product definition,
Right.
and that's all they are playing with. And they feel very comfortable doing
Yeah.
that.
You know, it's very easy for business teams to get a hold of agent solutions. They're all over the place here, right? And I don't know if I said this strongly enough at the beginning, but this is the era of experimentation, right? We need to enable our teams to experiment. Not just to experiment on one platform or with one tool, they need to be able to try different AI solutions out. And if it takes, the statistics right now are scary. There was one that came out, I am not sure it's right. I think it was one of the consulting firms said 80% of AI projects fail. That's high, right? I'm not sure that's right. But I do think it's a high percentage of AI projects that fail. I think fail is the wrong word, right? We need to experiment. And so my rule is 10 projects, 10 weeks. If I can create a standard data model, data governance approach, data pipeline for AI agents, I can allow business teams to ideate and experiment with more AI tools. In Starburst, we have two ways to do that, right? One way is we have an agent built into Starburst, just a simple agent that allows teams to go in there. It's out of the box, and they can talk to their data. You build a data product, you can start talking to it. That's cool for analytics teams. But the real excitement is over here on the front end, right? Once you build the initial BI or application data product, you can move very quickly into a conversational data product, right? Simple UI, over the data product, using the same model I described a second ago, right? Data product, schema, metadata, LLM. You're able to get very fine accuracy and get people excited. You can, again, start to accelerate those use cases. This is starting small, but I don't think the AI and the agents are supposed to be big, right? I think it's, should I coin this? Have you ever heard the phrase big data, small agent? If you haven't, maybe I should coin that. But I think that's the story.
Yeah.
Big data, small agent. The reason I say small agent is because we want to personalize agents. I want to build an agent for you. I want to build an agent for the specific business. In the IT world, we're used to building these big bad applications that take a long time to build. In the AI world, I want to build fast, small agents specifically for a specific business case, for a specific team that they can trust and use very quickly. And I think this is where you can get started right now.
So I think one thing that you can also think about is why it's accelerating for the business is because you are not caring about moving the data into a system before you start using it.
Yeah.
Because of the federation, because of the data product interface being the system that your business is interacting with, they're already familiar with it because they're using it in dashboarding, in BI tools. Combine this with the agents, you are basically giving them something they are very familiar with, and they feel that they can adapt it and start using it much more easily.
It's a great point. Something they're familiar with is a really, really important session, or a really important point. Sometimes the agents themselves feel a bit scary to business teams. So what I like to do is I like to embed the agent into something they already trust. There's an application or a dashboard or a tool they're already using that they already trust. You can embed an agent into those tools and really drive adoption faster that way. If we're doing this right, you're starting to build these small agents very quickly for business teams. Very quickly, you're going to end up with a situation where you have a lot of different kinds of agents for a lot of different users. And that's when you start to kind of have the need for that orchestration agent that I talked about earlier. A lot of different ways to build it. It's not part of the Starburst platform, but every one of our customers is dealing with a multi-agent front end, has some type of orchestration. I typically see that in a line graph. It's kind of where we've built it before. This picture here. An MCP also is something that you really start to kind of see climbing. Our product guys didn't want me to put MCP initially. I put it there anyway because we're actually not releasing our MCP server until I think it's January of next year, or this coming year. But we've already got some customers testing our MCP server. And so as part of an agentic framework, you want the ability for agents to come in and via MCP request data on the back end. An agentic workflow has a couple of different pathways, right? There's agent to agent workflows. There's agent to Starburst workflows. And then there's also on the kind of on the back end, there's different models you're using, right? Model management is a really important aspect. Some of your agents on our banking spaces, some of the agents we built require the bank to use an internal LLM. So our Starburst model management will route those questions to the internal kind of on-premise GPU or on-premise LLM. For other types of agents that maybe are less risky, they're fine using Bedrock or something else, right? And so the model management allows you to route different types of agentic requests to the right agent based on cost, based on security, based on user.
So one thing here is that scaling in terms of AI agents is one thing. The other aspect that helps you scale is that because of the cost of operation is so much cheaper compared to the alternatives, because you don't have to worry about moving the data, you don't have to think about creating a data pipeline. This kind of cost saving helps you try, innovate, and prototype very quickly. And if you fail early. Instead of wasting millions of dollars, you will be spending a lot less and be able to try multiple things in the same framework.
Fantastic. Awesome. Walking away points. The experimentation is really, really important for your business teams, right? So enable them to experiment faster, enabling them to experiment with less investment, and ultimately enable them to experiment with more different types of tools, right? If you've got a really good platform on the back end to deliver data, then it doesn't really matter what agent they want to use because they're all using the same data products off that same semantic layer. So fantastic. Thank you very much. What did I miss? Anything else?
No, I think this is it. So yeah, and if you want to see a demo, we are
absolutely.
at the booth K50. Please stop by. We also have a couple more sessions. There is a session at 4 o'clock by Adrian where he's going to talk more about the strategy. And tomorrow at 10:30? 11. There is another keynote session. So please stop by and we'll be happy to answer more questions that you have.
Cheers. Thank you.